Princess Kate played a key role in the palace's response to Harry and Meghan's tell-all interview. Plus, William and Harry celebrate the Diana Awards while Harry and Meghan move out of Frogmore.
It is interesting. This feels like an ongoing story where it was like, they're leaving, they've left. Now they've really left. Now everything's really left. You know, this is just, we've heard so many times that they're leaving Frogmore. I hope that this has sort of been a closed chapter for them.
Plus, lawyer Ron Zambrano breaks down the latest in Harry's legal woes.
I think it's just a statement going, you guys tried to do this again, I will drag you in here again, and I will come in. This is not a bluff.
And Caroline Perry, author of The Corgi and the Queen, chats about the Queen's bond with her dog, Susan.
They really had that love of dogs together. It was a bond that she never wanted to end. And Susan really was a connection to her father, which is also why she continued that line for 14 generations.
We've got that plus so much more on today's Royally Us. Hello, our fellow royal lovers, and welcome to Royally Us. I'm Christina, that's Christine, and Valentine Lowe's reissue of his book making some big bombshell claims.
That is definitely the biggest story of the week, I think. We have to get into it later because it's pretty interesting.
Pretty juicy. All right, stay tuned. But first, let's see what you guys had to say about last week's show. Sue Waters says the comment that M only spoke with important guests, so naturally she interviewed Andy Cohen, Serena Williams, and Mariah Carey, just not the lesser beings. Don't be so naive. A lot of people had a lot to say about Meghan may or may not have done all of the interviews for her podcast. People were saying that she just interviewed the A-list stars, not like, the experts and things like that. So a lot of you came after us on that one.
Yeah, this is such an interesting thing. Now, you and I know that sometimes you'll do the interviews. We'll both do the interviews. There's definitely a lot of people involved in making a podcast. But I don't know. This just seems to, everything Meghan does seems to just somehow backfire on her.
Yeah, like girl can't do anything, right? She really can't. Lauren says, I think they have the right PR team, but they didn't listen to them. They thought they are always right and do nothing wrong. I agree. Maybe they had the right people in their corners, but if you're not listening to those right people, then things kind of fall through the cracks and don't go right.
Yeah, I do think that they probably have a good team, but there was something interesting in the Netflix series where the person who, like their manager, says, what is a royal expert? And when I heard that, I was like, I don't know if this is the person to run your brand.
No, definitely not. You're so true. There was a lot of red flags there. Yeah. And then another user says, wow, King Charles coming out with his own YouTube channel on the environment is truly amazing. The King's channel and Prince William's Earthshot Awards channel are channels I'm definitely interested in and definitely watching. So truly admire King Charles, Prince William, and Princess Catherine for trying to create change in these uncertain times. Yes, that seems to be big passion projects for them. And it's nice that it's all in one place and everybody can get all the information that they need.
Yep, it's a very modern world when the royals are YouTubing.
Very, very modern world.
Vlogging.
I love to see it. All right, let's get into our news of the week. And Prince William and Prince Harry appeared in 2 separate videos for their annual Diana Awards honoring young change makers around the world. William helped open the annual ceremony while Harry introduced a group of winners as the award championed almost 200 young people from 31 countries. So take a look.
It is a reminder that when we invest in young people, when we provide them with the tools and opportunities to make a difference, they can truly change the world. A belief shared by my mother and one I am proud to continue in her name.
Her legacy continues to inspire and serve as an example of how to navigate the complexities of the whole world today.
It's nice that they keep this tradition and this award ceremony going, highlighting a lot of these young people that are making such a difference around the same time of what would have been Diana's 62nd birthday.
Yeah, it's great to see that they still support this organization, support this cause. A lot of people thought it was sort of disjointed or sort of telling that they filmed completely separate videos, that, they clearly didn't, sit in a room together. Right. But at this point, they live on opposite ends of the globe. Like, that's not an easy thing to coordinate, to do it together.
Mm-mm. Yeah, no, different time zones, not going to be in the same room together, Right. Maybe they could have hopped on a Zoom, but, we don't want to push it. We really don't. But yeah, no, it's crazy that Diana would have been 62. The Wales Instagram account did pay tribute to her this weekend as well, or this past weekend. So, it's crazy. 62. So young.
I know, it's unbelievable to think of all that, might have been.
Right.
But the fact that there's still so many really moving tributes to her every single year on her birthday shows what a huge impact she had during her life.
Yeah, and still does. All right. Well, the Princess of Wales opened up the recently transformed Young V&A Museum in London. She was shown some exhibits by a group of children who are part of the Renewal Project. So this museum is dedicated to children ages 0 to 14 and was carefully renovated over the past 3 years, includes some new galleries, images, designs. Kate chatted with students, and as the kids showered her with hugs, they asked her questions, including the question you should never ask a woman, how old she is. And she was, of course, played along. She said, "I'm 41. Shh, don't tell anyone." I love how she handles these sometimes uncomfortable situations, I would imagine.
I know. I think, from the mouths of babes, they're so innocent and so sweet. And she really does a good job, whether it's from reporters, people she's meeting, children. She does a great job handling just the myriad of questions that come her way. But this was really sweet. There was asked, whose mommy are you? And she said, "Oh, I'm Charlotte's mommy," and starts talking about the kids. And so it's just great. I think she probably enjoys working with children because they probably don't have the same sort of experience meeting her as adults do, where they they know she's a princess, but don't really know who she is necessarily. And I think that's probably special for Kate.
So special. It definitely is. Definitely. All right. Well, to close out Pride Month, a new video was shared from the Prince of Wales visiting the Royal Vauxhall Tavern in South London. It's one of the oldest LGBTQ plus spaces in the UK and rumored to be visited by Princess Diana with Freddie Mercury. Pretty cool. So he spoke to some people about improving mental health within the LGBTQ plus community. Take a look.
When people need the support, what do you advise is the best thing to do?
Ask twice. Let them say that, "Oh, yeah, I'm fine, thanks," and brush it off. And then "Are you really?" And then offer some evidence. Say, "Because I've noticed you don't see yourself at the moment."
We need to have more conversations with our friends, with our families. Being that person who sits and listens to someone is actually something that can help massively, more than talking or fixing.
I think it's very difficult to sometimes tackle it for young men. Young men are very notorious for not wanting to open up, not wanting to share, not wanting to look vulnerable.
But I think guys particularly find emotions quite difficult, don't quite know how to deal with them. Strong emotions, no emotions, whatever it might be, you kind of find it quite hard. And I think that's where we've got to get better at having an open conversation about these things.
I love this. This was a great conversation, a great video, and some history as well.
Yeah, this was so moving. I think it was really important to a lot of people to see the royals marking, Pride Week in such a big way. I mean, this was a very popular video. I mean, it was like a 2-day posting on their social media accounts, which for them, that's a lot of attention. But the video I thought was really well done and actually gives really tangible tips on how to check in on your friends and how to support them. It's not just this is a good thing. It's here's how to do this and what to say, which I thought was really important.
Very, very important. It's a good conversation to have and to highlight. All right. Well, Prince William has been very busy. He also was visiting Northern Ireland. And during one of his stops, there was somebody shared a story about Prince Philip, who of course died in 2021 at the age of 99. So he was at the East Belfast Mission, which provides a range of homeless support, which we know is a big movement that Prince William is behind as well. So he was chatting with Reverend Brian Anderson, who told Prince William a funny story about Prince Philip. He said he recalled how the royal's grandfather used directness and some colorful language to his advantage when persuading politicians and other civil servants to provide funding for the building that Prince William was visiting. He said that Philip immediately asked, "Why don't you just give them the money?" But with a more, obscene language. There was an expletive in there, but he wasn't going to say it. Well, the Prince of Wales responded, "That sounds like my grandfather." As we know, Prince Philip told it like it was.
Yeah, he was a fan of colorful language. I think he often spoke in ways that you wouldn't necessarily think, the husband of the Queen of England would speak. But it clearly got the job done. I think a lot of people found it really maybe if relatable is not the word, but it did probably take a lot of tension away from situations when he was just very matter of fact and colorful with his language.
Definitely. You're like, oh, I wasn't expecting that out of the Prince, but there it is. And I'm sure it's probably nice for Prince William to hear these stories about his grandfather they probably never heard before. So I love that. All right. Well, this was interesting. So the royal household published its annual statement covering the financial year from April 2022 to March of 2023. The report showed that $136 million was spent, a 5% increase compared to the year before. Now, there were a lot of big royal events that happened over this past year. So the sovereign grant, the taxpayer-funded settlement, covered $108.9 million, while the rest was taken from reserve funds. So they noted that the royal family, the official website said this year's statement covers a period of significant transition for the royal household, reflecting the Platinum Jubilee and state funeral of Queen Elizabeth, the accession of the king, the lead up to their Majesty's coronation, and the coming together of staff from two households. So, and there was, of course, renovations continuing at Buckingham Palace. So the Queen's Platinum Jubilee celebrations cost about $883,000. And her funeral cost about $2 million. So while it does seem like a lot of money, like we said, there was a lot of big events that did take place over the course of this past year.
Yeah, I mean, these are historic events. They're like once in a lifetime thing. It's not,
Yeah.
And I did read that this comes out to costing each taxpayer about 77p, which when you think of the return that you get on that, I think the royal family is worth $1 billion in returns. Into the British economy. So obviously we get our money's worth for that. It does seem like so much money though. But when you think about how much America spends on inaugurations every year, or even just presidential travel every year, it sounds like so much money, but comparatively, when you're thinking about how many security guards you have to think about, how many, like travel for all of those people, it's not just buying tiaras and frilly dresses. There's so much that goes into this.
No, it's so true. And I mean, that's like baseball contracts too. I mean, that's what people are making in a year. So it's not that, it's not, I mean, it looks like you said, it looks like a lot of money, but when you kind of compare it to some other things, maybe it's not as crazy. But it's interesting that they always release this report and to see how the money is spent and how much money is spent. Always very interesting.
Definitely.
All right. So following the news, like we talked about, at length last week about Prince Harry and Meghan Markle parting ways with Spotify, Netflix put those rumors to rest that their deal was going to be broken, saying, "We value our partnership with Archwell Productions. Harry and Meghan was Netflix's biggest documentary debut ever, and will continue to work together on a number of projects, including the upcoming documentary series Heart of Invictus." So, that deal seems to still be in place. No idea of how many projects they're going to be working on together, or if maybe that has dwindled. We don't know, but we do have the Heart and the Invictus coming up.
It does almost open up more questions than it closes. They should have said the relationship is good and closed and ended it there. Because now that they've mentioned Heart of Invictus, we know that that's been ongoing for such a long time. Seems to have been started and stalled here and there. And a lot of people are saying, where is this series? And then again, we don't know what happens after that series. So I do wonder, is this going to be, it's Heart of Invictus, the end of their obligations, and then they will part ways? This statement is just, it opens up too many questions.
It was better to just say nothing.
Yeah, just say nothing.
Just say nothing. All right, well, let's spill some tea, and we got a lot of tea to spill. So Prince William celebrated his 41st birthday with some friends. An insider told Us Weekly that William's friends had the idea to take him out to a nightclub for his birthday. William was skeptical at first, but then decided to step out of his comfort zone and do something he hasn't done in years. He wound up having an amazing time. Like we said, he maybe felt a little bit uncomfortable at first, but he eventually loosened up and cut a rug, the insider told us, with his guy friends. And he wants to make this a new tradition. He also spent some time with his family, having a nice special dinner with Kate and his 3 children. So it's nice to see William let loose a little bit.
I mean, I'd like to go back to some notes. He is a 41-year-old dad of 3. Like, I don't think they went that crazy.
Right. Yeah.
He'll probably had to go to rugby practice the next morning.
Exactly.
But it was really fun to see him. Definitely brought back memories of their clubbing days, or the days when they would be, William and Kate were seen out and about all the time. This was a private members club. So this wasn't, just any old club that anyone could walk into. It was private, so it was supposed to only be, elite clientele. I'm sure William thought that he could go and sort of fly under the radar, but that rarely ever happens.
He can't be that lucky. Can't be that lucky. But hopefully he had a lovely birthday. All right. Well, according to ITV News, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex are finally packed up, moved out of Frogmore. 3 months after King Charles evicted them from the property. So a palace official told the outlet that Harry and Meghan had only just left the estate, and despite moving to California, this was a few years ago, this was their official UK residence. So who knows? I mean, who knows if they're ever going to come back, but where they're going to stay going forward. But Frogmore is no longer an option, I guess.
Yeah, this is interesting. I wonder what was still there that they sort of had to move. Did they just leave some moving boxes or things like that? Or, furniture they decided not to ship overseas, those sorts of logistical things. It is interesting. This feels like an ongoing story where it was like, they're leaving, they've left. Now they've really left. Now everything's really left. This is just, we've heard so many times that they're leaving Frogmore. I hope that this has sort of been a closed chapter for them.
Right. Like you said, I feel like we've been talking about that. Wasn't this in their documentary as well when they went back and they were packing up some things there? Yes. I feel like this has been going on forever. So
right. Again, and I'm thinking that they're packing boxes. Is this boxes that they've left behind that they kind of had to deal with, that stuff that you never end up unpacking?
Mm-hmm.
I have boxes like that.
Seriously. I've been in my house for 7 years and I still have boxes. So
Exactly.
It just never ends. All right. So this was the big story that we were talking about at the top of the show. So following Meghan and Harry's explosive 2021 tell-all interview, in which they alleged that some members of the royal family were racist, and, the palace released a statement saying, recollections may vary. So in a new edition of Valentine Lowe's book, The Courtiers, The Hidden Power Behind the Crown, he claims that Princess Kate played a key role in pushing that said phrasing. So this was an excerpt that was shared by The Times. Lowe quotes a source who claimed that the palace's response initially had a much milder version of the recollection sentence, saying the debate was, do you rise entirely above it and offer the olive branch of Harry and Meghan, much loved members of the royal family, or is there some moment when you have to intervene and offer a view? The source also added that Kate and William wanted it toughened up, saying they were both of one mind that we needed something that said that the institution did not accept a lot of what had been said. Another source told the author that Kate insisted the phrase remain in the palace's response, saying it was Kate who clearly made the point. History will judge the statement, and unless this phrase or a phrase like it is included, everything that they have said will be taken as true. Source added she does not get as much credit as she should because she is so subtle about it. She is playing the long game. She has always got her eye on, this is my life and my historic path, and I am going to be queen one day. I mean, it's interesting because you don't really hear a lot of stories like this where, Kate speaks up and, you kind of tells it out how it is. But if that is true, I mean, it shows that people listen to her and she's in a role of authority.
Yeah, this is an incredible story. I think that just shows how much the Princess of Wales has really grown into her role. She's now a really well-respected member of the family. Her ideas and her thoughts are taken very seriously. And I also think this shows that Kate has a really keen understanding on what the press will say about you, how that makes people feel, and can sort of shape the public perception and how important that is. She's aware of what headlines say and how, what she needs to say to make sure the headlines say what she wants them to say. And this just, to me, if anyone has really battled the media, it is Kate and Meghan together. And so for Kate to take those experiences, some of them really, really negative and terrible, take that experience and learn from it in such a powerful way. She really, really has her head on right. She knows what it's going to take to keep the monarchy relevant and moving forward.
No, definitely. And it's so true. That's the sentence that people gravitated towards. And, that
There's
recollection.
T-shirts. You can buy a T-shirt that says recollections may vary.
I mean, it's so true. It really did. It made a lasting impression, and people, are still talking about it. And apparently she made the right move because, like we said, 2 years later, still talking about it. All right. Well, let's break down some royal rules. And, Prince Harry has been in and out of the court about his ongoing phone hacking case, but they're reporting that he should receive a maximum of just £500, which is about $637 in damages for one admitted instance of unlawful information gathering. So MGN admitted at the start of the trial back in May that on one occasion, a private investigator had been engaged to unlawfully gather evidence about Harry at a London nightclub back in 2004. They apologized for this, but they are also arguing that Harry has failed to identify any evidence of voicemail interception against him, nor any other evidence of unlawful information gathering in respect of his private business. So attorney Ron Zambrano, a partner at West Coast Trial Lawyers, is breaking down why, even though he may only get $600 or so, why this is still a legal win. Take a look. So are you surprised that Harry went to such great lengths for what could be maybe just $600?
Actually, I'm not, because this is such a public punchback by him and by extension his wife, that this is more of a symbolic, the goodwill that he's getting from this. And also basically people are going to be afraid of him. Like, he's not afraid to come out and punch back. He's not afraid to go into court. Remember, that was a big deal. Like, he showed up to court, he testified, he was able to withstand cross-examination. I think it's just a statement going, you guys tried to do this again. I will drag you in here again, and I will come in. This is not a bluff, because there's a lot of people who will bluff about it. He's like, I will not bluff. And I think what he's really doing is he's getting some currency later for people to look at him and go, like, do we really want to mess with Harry and Meghan, because they will come after us. And I think that is really what he was doing versus whatever he's trying to get monetary. Really, I don't think it was about the money. It was about the statement, like, I'm coming after you guys. I'm gonna use my celebrity, my status, to put you guys on a microscope so this doesn't happen again.
Yeah, well, that was kind of my next question. That's probably why his lawyers maybe agreed to take on this case, or even have him take the stand, because he's not going to get a lot out of this, but down the line, short term, probably not a good win. Long term, definitely a win.
Yeah, and I think he has a win now, because he's being so. I mean, he's to use the word. He's coming up and he's owning what he's been through. He's talking about experience, what he went through, and he's telling the public, and he's not afraid. And I think he's doing a good job for his own PR, and by extension, I think Meghan is also benefiting from it.
He argues that Prince Harry just showing up to court makes it seem like he is taking this very seriously and not to mess with him. And, it seems like every time that somebody is doing something against them, they are going to take legal action. So maybe he thinks that eventually it'll just stop. I don't know if it will, but, he's certainly putting in the work.
Yeah. And then we've sort of talked before that it almost feels like if they don't press charges or like send out legal letters, does that mean that it's true? And it's all sort of making things way more complicated than it needs.
Yeah, no, definitely. All right, well, let's move on to our royal history moment of the week. And Christine and I recently sat down with Caroline Perry. She's the author of this adorable children's book, The Corgi and the Queen, which tells the story of Queen Elizabeth's relationship with her beloved corgi, Susan. Take a look. Caroline, congratulations on your book, The Queen and the Corgi. I absolutely love it. How did you come up with the idea for this? Because it's so beautiful and so fun to read.
Oh, thank you. So I'd always wondered what it was about corgis that the Queen loved so much. We all knew that she had a lot of corgis over her lifetime and that she was never seen without them, really. And I thought, well, what was it about this breed that made them so special to her? And I started researching the history of her corgi ownership. And when I found out about the story of Susan and this real love story, which of course founded a regal dog dynasty, a 14-generation corgi dynasty, I just thought it was absolutely beautiful, and a story that all of us can relate to. None of us can relate to being a queen living in a palace, but we can all relate to those feelings of loneliness, isolation, and that want for unconditional love. I think we can all absolutely understand why she fell so hard for these dogs.
Those are such universal experiences, even if you're the future Queen of England. And we know the story goes that for her 18th birthday, Elizabeth could have chosen anything and she chose a puppy. And this is sort of where Susan came from. Why do you think, you're the future Queen of England, you could get anything? Why a puppy?
So they had two corgis in their childhood, Dookie and Jane, which her beloved father had bought for her and her sister. And really, it was a connection to her father. The corgis were something she associated with a carefree childhood. Of course, she was never meant to be queen. Had her uncle not abdicated, and even if her uncle had abdicated, had he had any children, she would have never been queen. So this wasn't the life she ever expected. So the corgis really reminded her of carefree days when her parents were trying to raise her and her sister out of the spotlight. They really tried to give them a normal childhood. And then suddenly, at the age of 10, she's told, actually, those fun times are over. You are now the future queen. So it was just a reminder of those times, and also a connection to her beloved father, who, as you know, she lost quite young. And they really had that love of dogs together. It was a bond that she never wanted to end. And Susan really was a connection to her father, which is also why she continued that line for 14 generations.
You know, you talk about, I can't imagine a dog in Windsor Castle or in Buckingham Palace, but these dogs, Susan especially, must have had, you know, living in the lap of luxury, literally. What was there, a corgi room in the palace? And what was that like? You know, what is royal corgi accommodation?
Absolutely. There was a dedicated corgi room at the palace. And after the war, Susan and the other corgis moved into this corgi room. They had little wicker baskets which were raised off the floor to avoid drafts. They each got a treat-filled stocking at Christmas, which then Princess Elizabeth made herself. And they had gourmet meals prepared every day, but Elizabeth would hand feed them, and she used to walk them all herself. She was a very hands-on dog owner, and she would oversee their menus, and she was looking into like homeopathic remedies for them. So she was a little bit ahead of her time, I think, in terms of looking after she didn't see them as pets. They were companions for her, definitely.
Yeah, they were part of the family. And I'm sure Susan had to approve of Philip before they walked down the aisle. So what was Susan's relationship with Prince Philip like?
Well, I think he tolerated the corgis. He definitely didn't love them as much as Elizabeth did. And I mean, the beautiful story that on their actual wedding day, Elizabeth had to have Susan involved in some way. So she smuggled her in one of the royal carriages on her way to honeymoon with Prince Philip. And Susan went on honeymoon. She went everywhere with them. You can imagine Philip, who, as we know, wasn't always the most patient of men, having this little dog, tagging along. He was like, okay, there's definitely three of us in this relationship.
I love that.
So great. Susan obviously lived a long and extremely luxurious and happy life, but she was eventually buried at Sandringham. Why do you think the Queen chose Sandringham for, Susan's final resting place?
So the Queen, she typically would bury her pets. The Queen Victoria established a pet cemetery, but the Queen wanted to bury the pets wherever they'd passed away, wherever they'd last been alive. So Sandringham was the closest place to where Susan was. And she personally chose the inscription for Susan's headstone. For almost 15 years, the faithful companion of the Queen. And she actually, there are sketches which went up for auction a few years ago of the Queen actually sketched out the gravestone, how she wanted it to look. And she wrote a beautiful letter to the vet who had tried to save Susan's life. He wasn't successful, sadly, because she was elderly, but she really just adored this dog. And she said, I could never imagine life without her. I'd always dreaded this day. But she did. Yes, she lived to be 15. And as we know, she had puppies. And then following that, we had 14 generations, all directly descended from Susan, which is remarkable. And the last corgi directly descended from Susan was Willow. Willow is one of the corgis seen in the Olympics videos with Daniel Craig. And she stopped breeding in 2018, even though her chief breeder really wanted her to carry on because she didn't want any of these young dogs to outlive her because they're so loyal. So it was really a selfless act on her part to kind of end that legacy, end that connection to her father, and that wonderful, long line of royal corgis. So, and then of course she got the two during the pandemic as a gift. But so 2018 was the time when she thought, well, I won't be around now to see these corgis into the adulthood.
So when people read this book and look at these beautiful illustrations, what are you hoping that they take away? Like you said before, this was such a beautiful love story between an owner and their dog.
Absolutely. And I think what certainly the feedback we've had, we've had incredible feedback, and it is supposed to be a children's book, but at least half of the people who've come out to my book events don't have children, or just people who love dogs, who have this connection to the Queen, but just that universal story of connection, of unconditional love. And I think this story humanizes the Queen. We all look at the palaces and the frippery, but that's not what she wanted. She was very much a down-to-earth country girl. This was a life that was kind of foisted upon her, and she took her responsibility so seriously, didn't she? When she said, I devote my life to service, whether my life be long or short, she was working up until the day she passed away. So it shows another side of her, the side of her that perhaps we can all connect to and we can all relate to. And I think she would have, my daughter actually wrote the Queen a letter before she passed away, telling her about the book. And she did get a response from the palace. Mm-hmm. The Queen was delighted to hear about the book. So as much as we'd have loved, the illustrator and I would have loved for her to have been around to have seen it, she was aware of it. And I like to think that she would have really loved it. It was a tribute to her, but Susan as well.
I'm sure she would have. Do you know if any other of the other members of the royal family have seen the book?
Yes, I do actually. I don't know if I'm allowed to say, but I know that it has certainly been received by some other members who have been very, very approving of it, and they really, really loved it, and they thought it was a lovely tribute to her.
I love this conversation. I love this book. Everybody run out and get The Queen and the Corgi. It's just fantastic.
So sweet. Perfect for bedtime.
It really is. I absolutely loved it. All right. Well, speaking of kids, let's move on to our pint-sized palace. And William and George did some father-son bonding while attending a cricket match over the weekend. They love partaking in sporting events together. We see them quite often, and they were photographed in a private box as they watched England take on Australia on the fourth day of the second Ashes test at Lord's in London. They just seemed like they were having a really fun time together. They were making similar faces during the game. It looked like William was explaining the game to his son, and they were sipping on drinks in unison in one photo. They're just the cutest. I love it. I love a father-son moment.
I love it. It was so sweet. I get really excited when William's supposed to go to sporting events because I hope he's bringing someone with him.
Yes.
Because it's such a fun day out. I loved seeing Prince George eating pizza.
Mhm.
And they're like hanging out with the prime minister. What an incredible experience for him as a little boy to have these, crazy days out with, it's just a day out with dad.
Right.
For him. For us, we're like, you're eating pizza with the prime minister.
Right. It's like, no big deal. We're old friends. We go way back now.
Right.
I love it. Well, it seems like a fun weekend. And what a jam-packed week of royal news, like always.
Yes, there was so much to get into. Next week is not going to be any different. We have Wimbledon to look forward to. So there's a lot to look forward to.
A lot to get into. All right. Well, everybody, that is it for this week's show. Keep commenting, keep subscribing, and Christine and I will see you next week. Bye. For more news content and exclusive interviews, make sure to hit the sub, like, and bell button down below and visit usmagazine.com.